What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Eric Wilson. We want to talk about the New York Rangers today and their inconsistency down the stretch of the regular season, and will it be a huge problem come the postseason? Now, obviously, you read that title and you say, probably. I mean, inconsistency, there's not really much room for inconsistency in the postseason. We're going to discuss how the Rangers can maybe get back on a more consistent track and make sure that they are primed and ready to go for the playoffs. 5 games left, but in the last 5 games, the Rangers loss, win, loss, overtime loss, and a win. Lots of inconsistency, and they did have an opportunity to move up into the second seed during that 5-game stretch, and they squandered said opportunity. However, there are still 5 games left. They have a chance to move up in the standings, but right now it looks like they're pretty much locked in to that 3rd seed. But let's go ahead, Eric, and discuss all of this. Before we do, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode. But without further ado, Eric, how are you doing today, my friend?
Pretty good. No Rangers hockey today or tomorrow, so we got a couple days for the team at home at the Garden. But you look back at last game yesterday afternoon, pretty dominant game right there, 5-2 win over Washington. So we know that this team does have a lot of potential when it comes to playing teams that are like pretty good and have a lot of star players. We can beat them, and we have beat them in the past. But then there's also some games, for example, against Buffalo, where Buffalo isn't really that good of a team. They're not even like in the playoff picture anymore right now. And then they just come out of nowhere and beat us because of our inconsistent play. So I don't know. We have a really good team that has the potential to go far, but there's definitely a lot of kinks that need to be worked out in order to make a deep playoff run.
Yeah, unfortunately, it feels a lot of the times like the Rangers are playing down the competition when they shouldn't be. Sometimes they play up the competition. A lot of times they do play down, as you mentioned, that overtime loss versus Buffalo. Very disappointing defeat. But I will say Panarin had 3 points versus Washington, 0 points in the previous 2 games. That adds into the inconsistency. And I think we have 2 other stats here that's going to tie in this conversation. The inconsistency right now is really coming from the top 6. Kane had 1 assist versus Washington, 0 points in previous 2 games. Kreider has 2 points in the last 5 games, despite having 51 total on the season. So when you're looking at that top 6, Eric, of course, pull up the lines. We could discuss them. You got Kreider's advantage at Kane. Panarin, Trocheck, Tarasenko in the top 6 right now. So that has been very inconsistent over the last several games, right? The last couple of weeks, really. And that's completely different than how it was because several weeks ago, we were talking about the bottom 6 being very inconsistent, the kid line being in a funk, and the top 6 carrying us through games. But now it just seems like we can't get the top 6 or the bottom 6 to click and just be both playing well at the same time. What's the solution to that, in your opinion? Like, how does the top 6 get back on track while keeping the bottom 6 on track?
Yeah, well, obviously the bottom 6 is carrying right now, as you mentioned. Without the kid line performing as well as they have the last couple of games, we would not be getting any wins throughout this last stretch right now. So we could pretty much thank them for that. And I know I saw just a stat earlier, like a half an hour ago on Instagram, where when everyone on the kid line contributes at least 1 point, the Rangers are like 19-0-2 in those games. So we know the effect that the kid line has right there. And it's really just getting now the top 6 to also be clicking, which what happens, what needs to change? I mean, we see a difference right here. The last like pretty much portion of the season since the trade deadline, we've been seeing Panarin's advantage at and Tarasenko, and then Kreider, Trocheck, and Kane. But it looks like Gerard Gallant decided to switch it up right now, where Kreider and Kane are up with Zibanejad, and then Panarin and Tarasenko are down with Trocheck. So it's just like a minor switch up right there. You know, the top 2 lines pretty much get similar playing time right there. I guess just switching up the centers will hopefully just make a little bit of a difference. You know, it's not a drastic change. You're not seeing one of those guys move down into the bottom 6 or anything like that. But a small tweak in the lines could be effective, especially when we have 2 days off and today and tomorrow to practice and really just get a little bit of new chemistry building right there. I mean, we know Kreider and Zibanejad play well together, so it'll be good to see them together with Patrick Kane as well.
Yeah, and also part of the problem here with the Rangers, how inconsistent they've been, is their power play has been wildly inconsistent. I feel like we've had this conversation throughout the season. It's not just an isolated last 5 games, last 10 games, last 2 weeks. It's nothing like that. It's really throughout the season, it's been very inconsistent on the power play. But in the last 5 games, their power play percentage per game has been 25%, 0%, 50%, 25%, and again, 0%. So the Rangers unable to consistently score on the power play, and it's coming back to haunt them. Eric, what is the solution to that? Do they need to change the power play units, switch up the special teams, or do you think that they just need to keep working at it and hopefully it fixes itself?
I think it'll fix itself, honestly. And that stat, like, really just like showing the difference in like how successful it's been recently. You also have to like factor in how many power play attempts they're getting per game. I remember when I was taking note of that stat, like for that first game, 25% power play, we had like 4 attempts there. So it was 1 for 4, which is still pretty good. The 50% one was like 1 for 2. So like, I mean, it's an important stat to show that like it can be successful and it has been unsuccessful throughout the last couple of games. But you also do got to factor in how many attempts we got, which is why I don't think it's anything too crazy that we need to worry about. I think it's really just keep them together, just hope you get more attempts. And that really comes down to like the fourth line as well. Because I mean, it's really the whole team, but especially the fourth line, drawing penalties, making plays, getting the other team to mess up and get your star players out there on the power play is a huge part of the game that is really underappreciated with drawing penalties. So I think that can be improved a little bit as well.
Yeah, and another aspect of this that we should totally discuss, because we've been talking about it all season long, the inconsistency defensively, right? The defense has been wildly inconsistent. One game, the Rangers are, shutting a team out or keeping them at 1 goal or less while putting up 6, right? 6-2 win versus Columbus just 4 games ago, right? But then there's other games where they'll let in 4 or 5 goals out of nowhere, or the defense will choke in the final minutes of the game. How concerning is that for you, Eric, as you look ahead to this postseason, knowing we have to go up against some pretty heavy hitters once we get there? I mean, we're likely playing New Jersey to start the postseason. We just faced them. The defense did not play too well against them. Again, in the final period, really just kind of choked it out. So how are you feeling about the defense and what needs to change for the Rangers to get consistent on that end again and hopefully win some postseason games?
Yeah, I mean, the defense hasn't been perfect, obviously, but I don't know if it's anything that's like too concerning because we got to still consider the fact that we are still without Ryan Lindgren, pretty much like the best defensive defenseman on the team that we have right now. And Jordan Gallant has said he is expected to play before the regular season ends. So hopefully we'll be able to see him just get like adjusted to playing again because it has been a while. He was injured for a couple of weeks and he came back for a game, got hurt during that game. Now he's back out. But overall, I don't think the defense has been horrible. I think Mikkola has improved. He's getting a lot of minutes right now playing up on the top line with Adam Fox currently. So once Lindgren's back and he's back with Fox, we're really just going to see bare minimum of Mikkola, less time to have too much of an impact negatively, but just enough to contribute what he can. And, despite the defense being a little shaky, some good games, some bad games, at the end of the day, we have Igor, he's God and he's pretty much back in shape. He's been a little inconsistent this season too, where he started off really hot, started slipping up a little bit. And we were just like, he's not playing like he did last season. But now you look last 10 games, Igor is 8-2, 1.89 goals against, 0.939 save percentage, and he had a shutout recently as well. So Igor is back to God mode basically, as well as Halak. So as long as he continues to remain consistent, I think that like slight inconsistency with the defense can be overlooked.
Yeah, I mean, Shesterkin is obviously like the MVP of the Rangers. He always has been from the start of the season. But when you're taking a look at the postseason, the main problem with the Rangers was that they relied on him too much. That's ultimately what cost the Rangers their spot in the postseason, their spot in the Stanley Cup Finals. Towards the end of it, so much inconsistency in the forwards, a lot of inconsistency in the defense, and eventually Igor just faced too many shots, and a few of them went in, and it wasn't necessarily his fault. So I think that there's a lot to be said about not relying fully on Igor Shesterkin to take us to the promised land, because what the Rangers really need is the offense to continue to play at a high level so that Igor Shesterkin doesn't get overwhelmed with too many shots, and the defense, same for them. I will say, though, there's a few of the forwards who I think do play well defensively. I think Zibanejad throughout the month of March, while he was still a Magic man, hopefully he'll continue to be into April, June, so on and so forth. But he played some pretty good defense, but there were some lines out there that provided pretty much nothing defensively. So what are your thoughts on that? And how do you think that the Rangers mitigated that issue?
Yeah, I mean, there are some forwards out there who really just aren't that good defensively. The biggest one, my favorite, Artemi Panarin. He continues to turn the puck over and just make simple mistakes like that. The same kind of goes for Tarasenko and Patrick Kane. They're not as bad as Panarin, but they don't really contribute too much defensively. So when we were looking at that line of Panarin, Tarasenko, and Zibanejad, it was kind of okay because Zibanejad was just so good at playing defense as a forward that it kind of just negated all those turnovers from Panarin. So it's interesting to see how this is going to play out now with these new lines with Kreider, Zibanejad, and Kane, because Kreider is also pretty good defensively too. He's one of the fastest skaters in the league. If the other team's taking it up the ice, Kreider can get there and make an attempt to get rid of it. So it's really just going to come down to how well Vincent Trocheck plays right now, because as I just mentioned, Panarin, Tarasenko, they're not bad. They just make stupid mistakes. And Vincent Trocheck is our best face-off percentage guy on the team right now. So hopefully, as long as we just continue to win face-offs and hold on to the puck, the other team can't really give Panarin or Tarasenko an opportunity to make a mistake.
Yeah, so before we wrap, though, let's answer the hallmark question of the episode. Eric, how concerning is the inconsistency to you? Do you think it's going to be a big problem in the postseason?
I mean, if it stays exactly how it is right now, I don't think the Rangers are making it past the second round. So there's a decent sense of urgency right now where we're going into these games where we should be winning, and we're not even looking like an NHL roster until halfway through the third period, and Igor just saves us and buys us a win basically. And then there's other games where we go out there against really good teams like Carolina, and then just go out there and beat them. So I don't know. We have the potential, and I think it's it could be fixed quite easily once we just start to become consistent and really just play well. But if nothing changes, yeah, I'm concerned. So get it together, team.
Yep, I'm also extremely concerned. I feel like the Rangers, some nights I feel so confident. I'm okay, that game against Nashville, I'm this is exactly everything starting to click finally. Let's go ahead and win the cup. And then a game or two later, they lose in pretty pathetic fashion. And you're just well, that's the Rangers, very inconsistent. And I hope that is something that over these final 5 games in the regular season, they can end it on a good note, regain some of that consistency, go into the postseason without the inconsistency, and hopefully go ahead and make it deep.
Yeah, and I will say also with these 5 games remaining in the season, just looking at the schedule, the schedule's not that hard. We play Tampa next. I think we also have another game against Toronto. And those two teams, obviously very good. They've already clinched their spots in the playoffs. They're actually the first confirmed matchup right now. Then the other 3 games, St. Louis, Columbus, and Buffalo, those should be easy wins, Obviously, we don't want to walk into it being we're going to win. We've seen how that happened last game against Buffalo. But it should be a relatively less difficult game for the Rangers to go out there and figure it out, work together, and just put up a bunch of goals against these teams. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yep. Hopefully we can win with some solid, or end the season with some solid wins. I think that we'll see Yaroslav Halak probably 2 times before the season ends, which I think is going to be good, keeping Igor Shesterkin fresh as we head into the postseason, allowing him to be consistent. I don't want him to get too much ice time for these final games. I do think we need to see Halak out there just so that we can preserve a little bit of Shesterkin's energy going into the postseason.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Gallant, I would kind of just do every other game right now. For Tampa, put in Igor, St. Louis, Halak, Columbus, Igor, Buffalo, Halak, and then close off the season with Igor. Just get him some rest and just play our better goalie against the better teams.
I think that's exactly right. That's exactly what I would do. So, but we want to hear your thoughts on it down below in the comment section on this topic. What do you think about the final 5 games? How confident are you in the Rangers going into the postseason? Let's hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Make sure to leave a like. If you did enjoy this episode, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and we will catch you on the next one. Have a good one, and
let's go Rangers. Woo!